Hello, this is Bryceton LeFlore with the Tennis Journal podcast. The following is an interview with certified yoga instructor and personal trainer Bale Shabeka Amalak. In this interview, we will uncover why yoga is an extremely powerful practice to incorporate into your routine for heightened performance in tennis. We also talk about why yoga is so important for the body and mind and how to use yoga to improve as a tennis player. So there's a lot of athletes having incredible success with um, doing yoga and mixing yoga with their workout routines. I've studied a lot about Novak Djokovic, and he's a huge proponent of yoga, and he says it's been one of the main reasons why he's achieved incredible things in tennis. And also, another athlete that comes to mind is Tom Brady. He does a lot of exercises um, that are about flexibility and strength, and he talks about this thing called pliability, where it says your muscle should be soft and flexible, and that will decrease your chances of injury. So, I was just wondering, why do you think yoga is helping so many great athletes and achieve incredible things in sports?
Well, definitely because ultimately, the way that yoga can strengthen your muscles and also stretch your muscles, it kind of gives you muscles that pliability that Tom Brady was talking about in order to have it at its optimal function for peak performance. So you can have strong muscles, but is it giving you that peak performance and dexterity that you may have with the certain types of exercises? Because you have what's functional strength. Like a lot of guys are really big and bulky, but maybe they can't even pull themselves up from their own position. And so there are a lot of micro muscles as well. And also, I think focus that a person might get from actually going through and doing yoga practices, besides the actual physical aspect, which can mean, giving that muscle pliability, giving it the strength, giving it the flexibility not to get injured when you get tangled or wrapped up in a bad situation in one of these contact sports.
Well, could you go more into detail about what yoga does with the flexibility and the balance aspect of it?
Yoga, it works on your flexibility and your balance.
Uh-huh.
And um and depending on what balance is something that everyone should work on, but depending on your strength and the condition of your muscles at this point, everyone should be flexible. But if you have more strength and flexibility, you work more on flexibility, and vice versa. If you need to build more strength, you build that while maintaining flexibility, because you need that flexibility to make your muscles more functional than just strong.
Could you talk about how you combine your yoga practice with physical fitness personally? Because you're a person who does who's a yoga instructor, and also you're really into calisthenics. So could you
Yes.
go into how you combine the two and how that can relate to heightened athletic performance?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main way I incorporate my knowledge of yoga and practice into my calisthenics is really by bringing more of a sense of awareness. Because, for example, calisthenics, necessarily isn't yoga, but how I incorporate yoga into it is by maybe alternating strengthening exercises with stretches, which is a normal thing to do with any type of exercise. However, the incorporation of the yoga aspect, I would say, comes with the mental awareness of your body and your movements, in essence, to have more awareness and control of your body.
Okay, so how would you do that? So, for instance, are you saying that you would put like an increased awareness into your calisthenics, or is that like incorporating some type of strength routine into your yoga routine? Could you go into more detail about how you would do that?
Yeah. Well, for example, in yoga, there are different aspects that you work on, just like in exercise. You might work on strength. There's repetitive strength. How many times can you lift this? There's static strength. How long can you hold this? Okay. And then we're also dealing with balance, right? So you can lift up one foot off the ground and you're working on your balance, right? So in one sense, that's coordination. So if you're working on balance. So is it okay if I get up and do a little demonstration?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So for example, if you're working on balance and you lift one foot off the ground, now you're balancing, all right? So we're building coordination in space with balance. Now, balance plus this movement, right? Now this is just specific attention while I'm balancing, right? So what that's doing is that it's exercising my body's ability and my brain's ability to maintain balance, as well as keep myself coordinated in three-dimensional space, right? So the more you are able to essentially master yourself and your body through practices like calisthenics, but also with the awareness, when you're bringing more awareness into the activity, it becomes more of a yoga practice. And there's actually a name for that in Sanskrit, and it's called a siddhana. Siddhana is almost like everyday tasks that you might do, but what makes a siddhana is when you bring awareness to the task. This could be like washing dishes or sweeping the floor. I know I'm elaborating here, but it's kind of the way that you incorporate it. You understand? Because you could just be sweeping the floor and sweeping the floor, and you can be cursing and you can be saying, "Man, I hate doing these chores," or you can say to yourself, "I may not like sweeping the floor, but I understand the lesson and the purpose of this activity." You
Mm.
understand?
So are you saying any type of physical fitness or movement can be yoga? Is that what I'm understanding?
I would say in a non-traditional way, yes. There are some people that might say, no, this has to be very specific to be yoga. But I think we live in a time where, I consider call it new age spirituality or philosophy. And the truth is that just like any system, yoga is here to help um, make our lives better, to help us evolve, right? And so it's here to serve us. We're not here to serve it. And so even though that we have to honor the traditional teachings that we learn, each person has a very specific practice. Just like you're who you are and I am who I am, and there's never going to be another me or you, our yoga practice is going to be unique to us. Just, understand? So if you practice yoga and I practice yoga, it's going to be you have your own practice and I have mine. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, I understand. So what I'm wondering is how do you think you could maybe implement this to increase your athletic ability or to become a better tennis player? How could you use, the combination of that awareness of, the exercises or your life practices, the calisthenics and the yoga? How could you kind of combine that to maybe be a better athlete?
I mean, I would say I don't like to use the term combine here, but I would more say incorporate yoga practices into your life and you will become a better tennis player. You don't have to incorporate yoga into your tennis. All you have to do is incorporate yoga into your life. And when you do the practice, it'll shine through every aspect of your life. You may be becoming more aware. And I think that nowadays people kind of have to have need a broader understanding of what yoga actually is, and it's not that, again, and I'm only elaborating just in honor of more traditional systems,
Mm-hmm.
yoga is yoga, and in the Western world, a lot of people and businesses, kind of when you combine things and you make it, something that is not necessarily, it kind of loses the essence of what it is. And so my calisthenics, separate from me doing calisthenics, I've done yoga. The first time I did yoga, I was 16 years old. And throughout my life, I have practiced yoga in varying degrees and intensities to this point. So the abilities that myself or any other athlete might have because of the yoga practice, I wouldn't say it's uniquely because they're combining the yoga with the football or the yoga with the tennis. No, they have a routine in their life. And in anything that you do, you have to have your routine. But then you have a recipe, right? And maybe you want to become a better tennis player. So now you want to add, yoga practice to your recipe. So instead of combining it, incorporate it into your life. I would recommend finding a yoga class that helps you balance the aspects of your, with tennis in particular. I think you need coordination. You need all these aspects. You need coordination in space. You need balance. You need agility, right? You need to be mentally acute and sharp. So when that ball is coming super fast, you can react super fast, right? There are practices in yoga that can help sharpen all of those aspects.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit? So, for instance, what asanas or what types of yoga could enhance those abilities as far as your reaction, your coordination, flexibility, and mental capabilities?
Okay, so in general, almost any type of yoga class, when you're doing a vinyasa flow, say you're in a vinyasa flow class. Vinyasa means to synchronize your movement with your breath. So, and there are different types of vinyasas. So when you're doing a vinyasa, you're in Tadasana standing pose, you jump back into chaturanga, now you're in a push-up pose, you go upward dog, you go downward dog. Now, what are you doing? You are moving your body in space. You're coordinating yourself, right? So you're actually building coordination, right? Now, you know what I'm saying? So now there's another practice, which is not, which I learned from my teacher, Andre Lapa, in Universal Yoga. It's called Shiva Nada. Shiva Nada or Shiva Nada. It's called the dance of Shiva. So this is one practice. It can be described as a moving meditation, but it also helps build coordination, and I would also, and neural pathways in your brain, as well as ultimately charging in your aura, your heart aura energy, right? And so a quick demonstration of the Shivanada is like these hand movements, like so. Now this is 1-1, and you move your hands in space position. Let me stand so you can see it clearly. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is interesting.
1-1, position 2-2, position 3-3, position 4-4. Now the purpose of Shivanada is to build coordination. So this is level 1, right? I'm having a conversation with you, and I'm in control of where my hands are in coordination in space, right? Now, what it's literally doing, because the right side of the brain is in control of the left side motor functions, and the left side is control of the right side motor functions, as you're moving your arms in coordination in space with each other, you're actually building neural pathways in your brain. What is that doing? In essence, I can say that it's making you smarter, and it's going to make your reaction times faster. So that was just level 1. And so it goes on in levels of complexity. So if you were to take a class with me or any other universal yoga teacher, they may have Shivanada as sections in their classes, which is why I would recommend for anyone, if anyone's going to do any type of yoga, to definitely look for universal yoga teachers, because this particular practice has so many aspects that are not found completely in other practices.
But what yoga would you recommend as far as maybe somebody who would want to improve as an athlete or tennis player?
I can give a quick snapshot, depending on what this person is trying to work on. The name's Hatha Yoga, is a very traditional yoga. Ashtanga, I love it. I believe they don't do too many different variations of sequences. That's the only thing I don't know about. When you're doing practice, different people have to work on different things, right? If you are very flexible, right, then you need to work on strength. You don't need to work on getting more flexible. If you are very strong and have well-developed muscles, well, but you're not very nimble and able to move around, well, you need to work on more stretching and counterbalance your weakness. And you can get different aspects from different types of classes. If you're a very busy working professional, or you had a long stressful day and you just kind of want to relax, well, I recommend you doing a yin class, which is a very slow flow type of class. If you want to do a class to get some strength and stretching in, then I recommend that has a lot of movement, then I recommend doing more of a vinyasa class. So depending on what your need is, that's how you select what type of class you would want to go to.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, okay, I understand. Just all about like your particular needs at that time. Um, okay. But let's say you as far as like let's say we can touch on those aspects about tennis. So for instance, the agility, the endurance, the reaction, the flexibility, sort of that mental astuteness. So what do you think, what yoga do you think offers that in particular?
Not just because it's my, what I was trained in, but the truth is it's universal yoga, because universal yoga um, has practices and incorporates practices, every single type of yoga that I just mentioned, with the exception of hot yoga, because we don't usually do hot yoga classes with universal yoga, is all of those aspects are covered um, within the practice of universal yoga. So I do know of some really great teachers who are in the Miami area. I'm in the Fort Lauderdale area. Um, and anyone who's in other parts of the country, I can check my teacher network and see, in which part of the country we might find other universal yoga teachers, because that is what I recommend. Because a universal
Okay.
yoga teacher would be able, I would almost recommend someone, if you're serious about your tennis game and you want to really, really improve and use the aspects of yoga to improve your tennis game, I would then recommend finding a universal yoga teacher and working one-on-one with that person to really target the aspects that you want to work on. If you want to work on, coordination, right? I recommend work with a teacher and do the Shivanata practice. You know, um, the what was I saying? The vinyasa flow is good, but there are all types of practices within the practice that can help with those aspects.
Hmm. Okay. Um,
Makes
yeah,
sense.
and I really hear all that you're saying previously as far as how yoga sort of can enhance the rest of your routine. So it's more so it's not so much um finding but incorporating it into your daily life. Would that be right to say? Or
I think that is the most right thing to say, yes, because I don't think that if you look at someone who's a superstar athlete, or who has a great body and is using yoga for it, it's, I think it'll be unfair to say, and I'm not trying to evade the answer, but it's not that, like, I can't give you one simple answer to say, hey, just do this and incorporate yoga into your tennis and it's going to be great. No, like, you have to, each person kind of has to do the work and find their own path into their own greatness.
mhm.
Understand?
Yeah, yeah, and maybe you don't want to necessarily just lose track of what yoga is when you're
Right. And
okay, when you're just focused on these goals. You want to focus on the yoga, and then by focusing on the yoga, you'll have the whatever you're trying to achieve naturally. Would yoga increase your ability to be, faster, you know, to work on how fast you're able to react, things like accuracy, um, power? Would that work? Would yoga be able to increase those faculties, or how would that relate to yoga?
absolutely. I mean, I love analogies, right? So let's say, and I think we've all played video games at some point, right? So it's kind of like, if we look at our body as, the more you can hold so many different positions, you can balance on your handstand, legs, you can do so many things with your body. You know what I'm saying? And the more ranges of abilities that you unlock through the practice of yoga, you see some guy, I'm not saying they did yoga to do this, but you see some guys doing parkour, I'm saying, because that's their practice and they're jumping from building to building. It's a dangerous thing. I'm not telling anyone to go do that. But what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
you're mastering your own body and your own abilities. And what yoga is doing is, like, if you're, hold on, let me use a piece of paper as an example. If you're a piece of paper, right, and you know how many different shapes this paper can take? It's probably a huge amount, depending on how you fold it, right? Humans, we're limited to a certain movements, but they're still a great number. So you understand? So the more levels you unlock in your body and your mind, and by the way, in yoga, there's a very deeper understanding of, like, you know there's an idea called the koshas, right? And so in yoga philosophy, yoga is much more than just physical. And I'm just going to segue for one moment, is that it looks at the human body as only one shell, and then you have your spiritual and energetic and pranic. And so these are things you learn when you get deeper into the practice. But the purpose of mastering the physical body is so that you can then start to access the other ones. The more mastery you get over your physical body, the more mastery you get over your mind, and then your energetic body, and so forth. So those people who master their own bodies through whatever practice they might find, yoga is a tool specifically for that, will in essence develop. It's almost like, I don't want to say a sixth sense, but it's like, it is like, because you've moved your bodies in all these different movements, you've developed your awareness, you've meditated, you know what I'm saying? And it's really about finding that quiet space in your mind. What makes, I think, one of the biggest aspects that I think any athlete might get from yoga, besides the physical, is when they get into the meditation aspects of yoga. Because when you practice state of awareness without interaction, without, that's when you're the most perceptive. And that's when you're the most reactive, right? Or rather, that's when you have the most potential for reactivity, right? Not that you always will react, but the meditation practice, the mind control over your body gives you control over your mind, and then that's what gives you those abilities. You know what I'm saying? It's very, it can become very esoteric, but I'm just skimming the surface here.
That's actually really interesting. So if to just to paraphrase a little bit, because I want you to understand and I want our audience to understand. So you're saying the yoga will unlock more parts of your body that you can access, and also it will increase your perception, and the increased perception will allow you to do certain tasks with higher quality. Is
Correct. Right. It will increase your ability. So I like to use examples, but one of the things that yoga does, that when you practice the coordinate, like we've all been in school, and some people have very good reflexes, some people are more clumsy, right? Some people slip, some people don't. These are natural tendencies. But whether you're very acute or not, yoga is meant to develop all of and sharpen your senses so that you can be the best and most effective human being.
Okay. Yeah, and
Develop your coordination, etc.
yeah, I'm really, really into this book called The Inner Game of Tennis. And basically, I mean, I've talked with some people that are really, really into this book, so I don't want to offend anybody, but basically the premise of the book and the philosophy is that you can heighten your ability in tennis by essentially decreasing the mind interference and allowing your body to naturally react to the task at hand, in this case tennis. So and this philosophy can be used with anything, and I almost think that's a little bit similar to what you're saying with increasing your senses and increasing the perception.
That's exactly what it is. Whatever they're calling it, it's exactly what it is.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So let's say I'm just giving you my workout routine at the moment, and maybe you can tell me what you think about this. So in the morning I do a 1 mile run, and then I do 50 push-ups, a 2-minute plank, and then I do like 15 to 30 minutes of yoga. A lot of times it's hatha yoga. What would you do? Do you think that would be maybe a good sample routine, or maybe could you provide what you think would be like a good, maybe structured routine, or like maybe some workouts that could hit this or this plus the yoga, or just do the yoga? Well, I'm just wondering, what do you think about that?
I think it's a good routine to get your cardio and then some strengthening in.
Uh-huh.
You can do the 50 push-ups if that's your max. I would definitely recommend, if you want to gain strength, either stay at 50, but then take a break and do it another time. You might not be able to do 50 again. You might go down to 40 and then 30. Or you can try to do 20, take a rest, try to do 20, take a rest, try to do 20, take a rest. You know what I'm saying? So try to do some reps instead of just one set of that type. Cardio is great. I would definitely recommend squats for everyone. Keep your thighs. You always got to work out the legs. lunges, alternating lunges. It's going to give you a little stretching and strengthening at the same time. The yoga, I think, is great. Make sure and I can show you incorporate some shoulder stretches, stretches for the chest. I think a good vinyasa flow combined with the hatha would be great, and it'll definitely give you some movement, and then some lateral movements.
And so the next thing I was wondering is, this goes back to kind of the mental side of yoga and increasing your mental capabilities and in increasing your senses. So tennis is essentially hitting targets under stress. So and I don't know if how much you play tennis, but it can be very, very mentally taxing, and then you have to sort of train your body to react under a mentally taxing situation, and that can be really, really difficult. And when you're playing, you see a lot of manifestations of that stress when it comes to making errors and how people are often responding. Like as a tennis coach, I realize that a lot of players, like let's say they're in a tough situation, they might get tight and then they'll start to play really conservatively, and then that will lead to their opponent being able to play aggressively, and then they're losing points. And there's a multitude of ways that this can sort of manifest in your game. So I was just wondering how yoga can work with the mental and physical side to help you cope with stress and be able to handle stress well, because a lot of it is sort of like looking the stress in the sort of being comfortable with the stress and still being in your body, and for you to be able to perform. So I was just wondering how yoga can work with that, if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. So I think for maintaining calm under pressure and under stress, honing in on our awareness again, and through the meditation practices, I think that's one aspect, because when you're able, what meditation does is it helps you be more at peace, helps you be more aware, separating your awareness, your observer self, from the constant stream of thoughts that's going through your mind, right? That might cause you stress and anxiety. But in essence, all of the stimulation of the world is just an analogy for our own thoughts. So through the meditation practice, we can hone our focus and awareness, blocking out all of the white noise, right? And when you block out the white noise, all you hear is quiet, right? That's because you're the awareness. And I think that's the ultimate way. That's the ultimate way. It's like, I think you mentioned earlier about it's kind of like not resisting, you know what I'm saying? When you let go of the thoughts, the whatever, your body can actually react. We have reflexes that are built in, right? We see, we react, you can train and you can sharpen that. But if you're worrying about your girlfriend or some other trivial drama while you're in a professional match, and your career's in the line, well, what's going to happen? You don't have clarity, you don't have focus, because why? Because you have in your life. You know what I'm saying? Something is, it's not, so I think the yoga practice can help people be at peace. And so that's going to increase your ability to be calm and react under pressure and under stress.
Okay, so how does yoga relate to meditation then? Is yoga a meditation? And I know there's different definitions of yoga, but I mean, like as far as the stretch, the physical yoga, where you're stretching and things like that, is that meditation, or would you do yoga and a separate meditation practice? I was just wondering how that works together.
You would do yoga and a separate meditation practice. Usually all of the different yoga positions and practices, it helps you actually, the purpose is to sit comfortably in action. So the word hatha yoga or the word hatha, ha and tha, there's two syllables and two meanings. Ha is active and tha is passive, right? And so in everything, there's rhythm, right? In, breathe, ha, out, tha,
Mm-hmm.
in, out, right? So there's a rhythm.
Mm-hmm. So, for instance, how would yoga work with the mental and the physical side?
Yes, I apologize. So yes. So the point of me saying that is that, again, ha is active and pa is passive. So
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of the active is so that you can be inactive. There's a pause between everything, right? And so after you do the practice, ha, you sit down and you meditate, da.
Mm-hmm.
And meditation is awareness, right? Some people might meditate at the end of class and or do savasana. Savasana is when you just lay flat, corpse pose, and you basically like withdraw all awareness of sensation to the source of attention, right? So that you totally relax. You know, when you disengage your body essentially, right? So after you do all of these stretches, you basically like a cloth and you wring out your body as far as you can. You stretch, you do as much hard work as you can. You do all you do as much as you can. You stretch, you work out, and then nothing. Lay down, release all control. You feel because you can't help but feel, but you release control of your body, right? And you let go.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is similar to that. And it's equally, if not more important. Well, I can't say more because it's a balance, it's hatha. So it's equally important. The inactivity, the meditation, the savasana is as important as the activity of strengthening the body, of strengthening the muscles, because that is strengthening your awareness.
I actually want to go backtrack a little bit. So, as far as you're saying that the yoga increases your mental faculties and your senses, and also sort of it helps you kind of reach more parts of your body. And I was actually kind of thinking about so when you're playing tennis, actually, and it was kind of how it changed. This really shifted how I look at it. See, it's really about learning, because for instance, it's not necessarily like there's shots in tennis. Okay, like you could hit a forehand or a backhand or overhead volley, but so it doesn't. Yes, it matters to learn that type of thing, but at the same time, every ball that you hit is different. So it's really learning how to play well is really more so about how to hit, how to react to a multitude of different situations. So really, that's like that you want to push that faculty, your ability to, change and react and adapt. And I wonder, so does flexibility lead to this type of mental flexibility? Because it's sort of like, how do you make your ground stroke or your serve react to certain situations that are different situations? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think the answer is yes and yes to both of your questions, because I think that how can you react and reach and swing your hand up here with the tennis racket if your muscles aren't trained and flexible enough to get there? One, is it, you know what I'm saying? And so
Mm-hmm.
you have the reflex, but do you have the ability? You might try to do it and like pull your arm, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't have, and like dislocate your arm or something if you don't have the strength and flexibility, the stability with the flexibility, which is going to give you the pliability and dexterity to do the job and be a great tennis player and hit that ball, you know? Um, and then also specifically the practice Shivanata, as I mentioned, is that is hitting, well, one is hitting very similar coordinates. The stretches that we do in universal yoga are actually very specific to the arms as well. And it gives you these ranges of motion that with strength
Mm-hmm.
that I think would actually be phenomenal for tennis players if you can master Shivanata, in all honesty. but also the pliability of the brain, as we're speaking about, because it's coordination between the hemispheres of the brain, right? And so while we're doing this, guess what's happening? My mind is controlling this hand moving in coordination like this, and then, but it takes practice, right? But the whole point is that it's building neural pathways, it's building connectivity in the brain's ability to react in to your arms specifically, being able to react in coordination in space.
It seems to me that like and I kind of feel like I learned this more in this talk. So like stretching the body and increasing the body's ability to be in different positions is also sort of changing the mind in a way to be more flexible, and at that point that you're almost like pushing the mind, and then through that challenge you can be in a more peaceful state too.
Definitely more at ease in your game,
Mm-hmm.
mentally and physically. You kind of like breezing through, and so in a sense you can see yourself getting there, but it's going to take work and practice, I think, for anyone to get to a mastery level of anything, of yoga, of tennis, or any other physical or sports endeavor.
I actually think this is a really good stopping point. Yeah, is there anything else you would maybe like to share about how yoga can work with the body and the mind, and perhaps how you can be a better tennis player?
I think ultimately, yoga is going to make you a better person, and through you shining as the best person you can be, you're going to play the most and be the most phenomenal tennis player that you can possibly be, if you truly incorporate and develop yourself in yoga.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and end the call now. And I think there are some really, really great insights in this talk. So I really appreciate you coming on the Tennis Journal and talking about this. And yeah, there's going to be some information to contact Bali in the link. So just go ahead and follow the link if you want to learn more about his insights about yoga and how that relates to fitness and sports. It's been Bryceton LeFlore and Bali with another tennis improvement video. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, great luck out there in the tennis court. Thanks.